Do you know what destroys a person the fastest? It's not poverty. It's not failure. It's the illusion that you're already enough. The moment you think you're better than others, that's when life starts teaching you a very painful lesson. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to say might send chills down your spine. Humility is not bowing your head. Arrogance is not lifting your chin. Humility is knowing you're not enough yet. Arrogance is believing you already are, and these two things decide whether you rise or fall. There are moments in life when you see someone sitting quietly in the corner, no bragging, no showing off, but their eyes are sharp, as if they've seen through the whole world. And right next to them, you see someone talking non-stop, flaunting achievements, flaunting knowledge, flaunting superiority, as if the world owes them recognition. The funniest part is, the loud ones are usually empty. The quiet ones are usually full of experience. But life is cruel, in a way. We're often attracted to noise, to superficial shine, to that comforting feeling of I'm good already, I know enough, I don't need to learn anymore. Then one day, life slaps us hard, so hard that we finally understand. Arrogance is the doorway to darkness. Humility is the doorway to light. Pay attention. The less someone knows, the more they pretend they know everything. The more someone knows, the more they realize how little they truly know. The weaker someone is, the more they try to look strong. The stronger someone is, the more humble they become. Life is harsh. It never rewards arrogance. It only rewards those who stay quiet, who bow their heads to learn, who accept how small they are in this vast universe. Some lessons you only understand when your arrogance makes you pay the price. Some truths only reveal themselves when you've hurt enough, fallen enough, lost enough to realize people aren't destroyed by weakness. They're destroyed by arrogance. I've seen many young people full of fire, full of potential, but because of a little talent, a little early success, a few compliments, they turn themselves into people who can never grow. They run fast, but not far. They leap high, but quickly lose breath. They're talented, yes, but they stop learning because they believe I'm already good. Meanwhile, the ordinary ones, the overlooked ones, often go astonishingly far. Not because they're special, but because they're humble, because they know they're not enough yet, because they're willing to learn, willing to be wrong, willing to be underestimated. And they keep moving forward quietly. Humility is a weapon, but only truly strong people dare to carry it. Arrogance is also a weapon, but it kills the person holding it first. Humble people never need to show off. Their strength is visible without words. Arrogant people never know how to be silent. The insecurity inside them is so big that if they don't show off, they fear being ignored. But here's something arrogant people never understand. No one respects a light that only shines on itself. People respect those who bring light to others. And that is the difference between the humble and the arrogant. One enriches themselves and the world. The other only fattens their own ego. Throughout your life, you'll meet two kinds of people. The kind who make you want to grow, to learn, to become better. And the kind you want to avoid, because they live inside an illusion they can't see through. The humble grow deeper. The arrogant grow emptier. You can hide ignorance with words, but you can't hide arrogance with actions. And this world looks at actions, not words. Some people spend their whole lives realizing that. No one looks down on the humble. but the arrogant are betrayed by their own ego. When you think you're above others, you stop growing. When you think you're still behind, you open a whole universe of possibilities. I've seen people close every door in their lives because of arrogance. They refuse to listen. They dismiss advice. They let their ego take the wheel, and they pay with their own life path a price so heavy that, only after losing everything, they realize all they had to do was be a little more humble. But that's life. Some lessons you can only learn through loss. You can't convince an arrogant person that they're wrong. You can only wait for life to teach them, with blows that are real, hard, and painfully honest. The humble are different. When they're wrong, they fix it. When they're lacking, they learn. When they're good, they know someone out there is better. And because of that, they keep rising, rising, rising. Not loudly, not showily, not seeking attention. They are like bamboo. The taller they grow, the lower they bow. Have you ever seen an arrogant person who is truly loved? Have you ever seen a humble person who is hated? This world seems complicated, but it's brutally simple. The humble are lifted up. The arrogant are pulled down. The only question is, which side are you on? Are you someone others respect, or someone they tolerate? Are you someone who inspires, or someone people avoid? Are you quiet and respected, or loud and ignored? Ask yourself. Because sometimes, we're arrogant without even knowing it. Arrogant in our thoughts, arrogant in our eyes, arrogant in the way we look down on others, arrogant in our certainty that I'm right, arrogant in an ego too big for anyone to reach. But one day, you'll understand. The louder you are, the smaller you become. The more humble you are, the greater you become. The scariest thing about arrogance is not that you look down on others, it's that you look down on your own future. Because every time you tell yourself, I already know this, you're closing a door to a better version of yourself. And life, in its brutally fair way, takes away from the arrogant exactly what they fail to appreciate. Look at reality. Humble people share one common trait. They listen more than they speak. They learn from everyone, even from those others. Overlook, they aren't afraid to admit they're wrong. They are not ashamed to start over. And most importantly, they know, I am not somebody yet. But arrogant people, they want to speak more than they listen. They believe they're right even when they're wrong. They fear losing face, so they don't correct their mistakes. They prefer to look knowledgeable instead of being knowledgeable. They think they stand above others, but in truth, they stand on the hollow shadow of themselves. Life teaches each person differently. The humble learn through experience. The arrogant learn through pain. Which way do you want to learn? I've seen many people enter life with swagger, believing their tiny bit of talent is the whole sky. They walk as if no one is worthy of being looked up to. But a few years later, life strips away every layer of their illusion, revealing a harsh truth. They're not even a fraction of the people they once looked down on. There's something strange, but very real. The more humble you are, the more guidance you receive. The more arrogant you become, the more you're left behind. Not because people dislike you, but because you create an invisible distance that makes no one want to help. Think about it. Who wants to guide someone who thinks they know everything? Who wants to help someone who constantly belittles others? Who wants to give opportunities to someone who doesn't appreciate them? Arrogance is the fastest way to bury your own future. Meanwhile, humility works like an open door. It opens hearts, opens opportunities, opens the mind, opens the path, opens the future. A humble person never needs to say, "I will be successful." Their actions make people believe they will be. Arrogant people are different. They talk endlessly about the future, but do nothing to move toward it. They make big promises, but deliver no results. They radiate confidence, but have no foundation, and worst of all, they can't see the problem in themselves. The world stays silent toward the arrogant, and quietly lifts the humble. Some people spend their whole lives wondering why they aren't respected, recognized, or supported, not realizing they've lived as if the world must revolve around their ego. But humble people are the opposite. They never have to demand respect. People offer it to them willingly. When you're humble, you see no one as beneath you. And because of that, no one sees you as too high to hate or too low to disregard. You stand in a unique place. Everyone wants to see you rise. Arrogant people stand in the opposite place. Everyone secretly waits for them to fall just so they can wake up. That's the truth of life. Look back at your own journey. The people who taught you the biggest lessons weren't teachers or books. They were the failures caused by your oversized ego. The mistakes you made weren't because you were incapable, but because you thought you were good enough not to check again. The opportunities you lost weren't withheld by others, you simply weren't humble enough to receive them. Sometimes life slaps you just to remind you how long you've been arrogant. And do you know what hurts more than failure? Seeing someone ordinary, someone who was once behind you, overtake you, simply because they were more humble than you were. Humility moves you forward little by little, quietly but steadily. Arrogance keeps you stuck in one place, loud but empty. The ego is beautiful when it is small, and ugly when it becomes too big. A humble person is like still water, can look into it and see themselves clearly. An arrogant person is like a warped mirror, distorted, exaggerated, unreal. No one wants to stare at it for long. Have you noticed? When someone is humble, you want to be near them. When someone is arrogant, you want to stay away. Not because they did anything wrong, but because the energy they carry is too heavy, too tight, too exhausting. Humility is the empty space inside. Youth, the space that allows you to receive more. Arrogance is the fullness, the state where nothing new can enter, and a full cup cannot be poured into. A person full of ego cannot grow. What's sad is, most people don't even realize they're living with a cup that's already full. They think that because they're slightly better than someone else, they have the right to lift their chin higher. They believe that past success guarantees they'll always be right. They assume a few small victories from yesterday will somehow protect them from tomorrow's failures. But life doesn't work that way. The past won't shield you. Your attitude determines where you're headed. Humility is knowing that being good today doesn't mean you'll still be good tomorrow. Arrogance is believing that being talented yesterday is enough to last a lifetime. Look at truly successful people. None of them sit around retelling old achievements to comfort themselves. They live as if they haven't accomplished anything yet. They learn as if they're far behind. They keep a soft heart to receive and a cool head to improve. And those who fail, they cling to the past like a life jacket while their future is sinking. They say, "Back in my day," yet today they have nothing left. They live off old illusions, then wonder why life no longer favors them. The answer is simple. The humble reshape themselves to fit life. The arrogant demand that life reshape itself to fit them, and life caters to no one. There are people you only need to listen to for 5 minutes to know whether they're growing or not, because the words of the arrogant carry a scent. The scent of competition, the scent of proving, the scent of showing off, the scent of insecurity, the scent of resistance, the scent of fear of being inferior. But the words of the humble are different. Soft but deep, few but meaningful, not boastful, yet respected, not forceful, yet powerful, not competitive, yet always winning people's respect. Some things don't need to be spoken, people feel them. The more humble you are, the wider and warmer your energy becomes, drawing others toward you. The more arrogant you are, the narrower and heavier your energy becomes, pushing people away. Life is fair. It doesn't care who you say you are. It looks at how you treat others when you're a little better than they are. A humble person never looks down on anyone, even on the one far below them. An arrogant person never respects anyone, unless that person brings them benefits. And life more than anything dislikes people like that. The older you get, the more you understand, humility isn't so others will like you. It's so you don't destroy yourself. Arrogance is not a social problem. It's an internal one. It's the fear of being belittled, disguised as confidence. It's weakness wrapped in the armor of I'm better than others. It's wounded self-esteem hidden under a layer of superiority. And the saddest person is the one who doesn't realize they're arrogant. Do you know who they are? The ones who never listen. The ones who react aggressively to feedback. The ones who hate being wrong, hate losing, hate being corrected. The ones who only want to hear what pleases them. The ones who surround themselves with people beneath them, just to feel superior. But here's what they don't know. When you insist on being the smartest person in your small room, you give up the chance to enter a bigger one. Humble people walk into rooms that make them feel small. Arrogant people search for rooms that make them feel big. That's why they move in two different directions. One steps into the world, the other steps into a loop. Have you ever seen an arrogant person truly learn something new? Have you ever seen a humble person who didn't improve? No, because humility is open. Arrogance is closed. Life only flows into open souls, never into hearts frozen by ego. And do you know what the funniest thing is? Humble people are often underestimated at the beginning, while the arrogant ones get praised just because of their loud exterior. But time, it has a very fair way of revealing who people really are. Humility is like a quiet stream, steady and strong. It doesn't need to announce that it's water, it simply flows. It flows through rocks, smoothing even the hardest surfaces. Arrogance, on the other hand, is like the first heavy rain of the season. Loud, flashy, sweeping through everything. But in just a few minutes, it disappears, leaving behind cracked, dry ground that no one remembers. Humble people aren't afraid to learn from others, because they don't see themselves as the center of the universe. They ask, they listen, they observe. They're even willing to face the painful truth that they know nothing or very little. And from that moment, they begin to know much more. What about arrogant people? They prefer talking over listening. They want to prove they're right more than they want to learn something new. They see feedback as an insult, and advice as belittlement. And because of that, their lives stay in one place, while the world moves forward every second. Look around you. You'll see people who seem ordinary, no flashiness, no shriness, but they grow every day, mature every year, and go much farther than those who love standing on a stage bragging about themselves. Because humility is a superpower. The less you show off, the more people want to know what you do. The less you talk, the more people want to hear you speak. The more you grow, the more you understand that sometimes your silence is worth more than 1,000 boastful words. Arrogance is the opposite. It excites people at first and exhausts them later. It pushes people away, makes them avoid you, resist collaborating, avoid sharing, and worst of all, it blinds a person from seeing their own flaws. Have you noticed? Humble people succeed easily because they're always open to change. Arrogant people fail easily because they close every door, unaware they're standing in the dark. A humble person understands, there's still sky above me. There's still more to learn. There are still people better than me. And that awareness is the map that takes them farther than anyone else. An arrogant person thinks, I'm enough, I'm better than others. And that sentence becomes the grave where their future is buried. Arrogance stops people. Humility moves people forward. And do you know what hurts the most? Many people don't realize they are arrogant. They think they're confident. But in reality, they're blinded by their own shadow. They mistake illusion for truth, noise for value, and then one day life slaps them so hard they finally wake up. Often, an arrogant person only changes after a major failure, a big loss, a long fall where they can't blame anyone else. Only in that moment do they realize, I'm actually nothing but the humble.
I know this.
From the beginning, they don't need life to teach them. They learn on their own. They fix themselves first. They move ahead. Do you want to know the biggest difference between humility and arrogance? Humility builds pathways. Arrogance builds walls. Wherever a humble person goes, doors open. Wherever an arrogant person goes, they shut their own path. Who you choose to be will decide the entire future of your life. Do you know what destroys a person the fastest? Not poverty, not failure, not lack of opportunity, but the arrogance they never recognize. Arrogance makes you think you're wise. Humility helps you see you're still foolish. And do you see the difference? A person who knows they're foolish will learn. A person who thinks they're wise will stay stuck forever. Someone once asked, why do humble people succeed for so long, while arrogant ones shine for a moment and then fade? Because humility gives you space to receive, while arrogance gives you pressure to maintain a mask. A mask looks good, but it's heavy, and eventually, it will fall off right at the moment you most need to keep your dignity. Life has its own rules. The arrogant will pay, the humble will rise. Not because the universe favors anyone, but because character creates destiny. Humility doesn't mean lowering yourself. It's silent confidence, the kind that says I don't need to show off because I know what I can do. Arrogance is insecurity disguised as confidence. A humble person doesn't need to say, I'm good. They let the results speak. But an arrogant person constantly needs to prove, I'm better than others. And the more they talk, the more hollow they seem. The more they brag, the more lacking they look. Have you noticed? The most successful people you've ever met speak very little, listen a lot, and never look down on anyone. But the loudest people crave admiration, crave praise, yet have nothing to show except their mouth. A humble person doesn't need to stand on others to rise higher. They rise because they climb, step by step. But an arrogant person climbs by stepping on others, and when they slip, they fall straight into the abyss. There's something every mature person eventually realizes. The more skilled someone is, the more humble they become. The less skilled someone is, the more arrogant they act. Because the skilled see the whole sky, the unskilled see only their own shadow. The skilled know their knowledge is just a grain of sand. The unskilled think they are the entire beach. A humble person looks at someone else's success and asks, "What can I learn from this?" The arrogant look at the same thing and ask, "What is there for me to envy?" And that's why they will never be the same. One moves forward, one falls behind, one expands their world, one suffocates their world inside their tiny mind. Do you want to know the most dangerous trap of arrogance? It blinds you to yourself. You're wrong but think you're right. You're weak but think you're strong. You're immature but think you're grown. And when life hits you hard, you suddenly realize, all this time, you've been living inside your own illusion. Humility is different. It's a mirror. It shows you the dirt on your face, so you can wash it. It shows you your flaws so you can fix them. It doesn't lie to you, doesn't lull you, doesn't give you cheap illusions. Humility makes you real. Arrogance makes you fake. And the real always wins. The fake always shatters. Some people say, "I want to succeed," but they are arrogant before they even have anything, while the humble stay quiet, persistent, patient, not rushing, not pretending, just moving forward. And in the end, life always pays exactly what you've earned. Humility equals progress. Arrogance equals decline. Humility equals open doors. Arrogance equals locking your own future shut. And that's why mature people are silent. Shallow people are loud. And then there will come a stage in your life when you look back at yourself and ask, have I truly been humble? Or have I just been pretending? Because some people are quiet not because they are humble, but because they have nothing to say. And some people boast not because they are confident, but because they're terrified others will see how empty they are inside. True humility isn't in your words. It's in the way you face the truth about yourself. Can you admit you're wrong? Can you admit you're not good at something? Can you look at the weakest part of yourself and say, I need to fix this? If you can do that, you're already ahead of 90% of this world. And arrogance, it shuts every door of learning just so. You can protect a tiny bit of pride you mistake for dignity. It keeps you from accepting the truth, from taking the lesson, from changing because change means removing the mask you've glued to your face for years. Humility helps you confront. Arrogance makes you run away, and those who run from life eventually get cornered by it. There will be years when you meet people far better than you. If you're arrogant, they become a thorn in your eyes. If you're humble, they become your guide. There will be times you make mistakes. If you're arrogant, you will search for excuses. If you're humble, you will search for solutions. There will be moments when you're criticized. If you're arrogant, you'll get hurt, angry, defensive. If you're humble, you'll ask yourself, is this true? What can I learn from it? Just by shifting your perspective, you shift your entire future. The humble see every failure as a teacher. The arrogant see every failure as an insult. The humble know they don't need to win every argument. They only need to win against themselves. The arrogant constantly need approval, applause, and the feeling of standing above others. The humble grow every day. The arrogant stay the same for life, because humility is a seed. It sprouts quietly, grows steadily, and one day becomes something everyone respects. Arrogance is a weed. It grows fast, takes up space, makes noise, and dies quickly. Have you ever met this kind of person? On the outside, they look strong, confident, loud, bold. But the moment they receive a small piece of feedback, they get offended, defensive, wounded. That's not strength. That's weakness pretending to be strength. And those who are truly strong, they stay calm, they listen, they smile, and they correct themselves. They don't react because they don't see feedback as a threat. Humility gives them a vast heart, and a heart that vast cannot be shaken by small things. Here's a harsh truth worth remembering for life. Arrogant people lose the most opportunities, not because they aren't skilled, but because no one wants to work with them. The humble are the opposite. People want to help them. People enjoy being around them. People want to walk beside them, because they carry an energy of respect, ease, and decency. And that energy opens doors that money or talent sometimes cannot. Isn't this world strange? No one wants to be looked down on, yet arrogance makes people look down on you the most. No one wants to be disliked, yet bragging makes people dislike you. No one wants to fall behind, yet self-satisfaction makes people fall behind the furthest. Meanwhile, humility quietly lifts you up. It's not loud, not flashy, not showy, but it takes you to places arrogance will never reach. If you want to truly grow, learn to stay silent when needed. Learn to admit when you're wrong. Learn to listen when others speak. Learn to look deeper into yourself instead of pointing at others' flaws. Humility doesn't make you smaller, it makes you steadier. It turns you into someone others respect, not because you're loud, but because you have depth. And then, you will reach a strange moment in your life. A moment when you sit alone, with no one beside you, no applause, no praise, no spotlight. And you suddenly ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? The arrogant fear this moment terribly, because when all the noise fades, they must face themselves, and sometimes what they find inside is emptiness they never realized was there. All the bragging, the confident poses, the things they try so hard to show. None of it matters when they are left with nothing but their own reflection. But the humble are different. They don't fear silence. They don't fear facing who they truly are. They don't need light from the outside, because they carry light within. They don't live to impress. They live to grow. The arrogant survive on validation. The humble survive on progress. One of life's harshest lessons is this. Humility lifts you up. Arrogance drags you down. And you won't realize it until it's too late. Arrogance is like sweet poison. It gives you a rush, makes you feel special, above others. You feel like you're rising, but you're only inflating, not growing. Humility, on the other hand, is like bitter medicine. Hard to swallow at first, but it heals. It wakes you up. It helps you live truthfully and go farther. Some people spend half their lives learning this, and some never learn at all. Have you noticed? Humble people always find a way to rise again after they fall, because they know when they're wrong. They admit it, they correct it, they stand back up. But the arrogant, one fall, and they collapse. Because they refuse to admit mistakes. They find excuses. They blame others. They justify. And the more they justify, the deeper they sink. Some people don't fall because of failure. They fall because their ego is too big. Arrogance blinds you. Humility opens your eyes. Arrogance makes you underestimate others. Humility helps you understand yourself. Arrogance makes you believe you've reached the top. Humility shows you it's only a small hill among countless mountains still ahead. The humble know they still have a long way to go. The arrogant believe they've already arrived. And those who think they've arrived too early never arrive at all. Do you know the irony? Humble people never fear those who are better than them, but arrogant people always do. They fear being outperformed. They fear comparisons. They fear losing their position. They fear not being admired anymore. The more arrogant they are, the weaker they become. The more humble they are, the stronger they grow. Someone once asked, why is humility so important? Because humility keeps your mind open. And when your mind is open, new opportunities enter. New knowledge enters. Good people enter. And new paths appear. The arrogant close every door because they believe they already have enough. But the door they shut the tightest is the door to their own growth. Look closely at life, and you'll see something clearly. The arrogant always want to be seen. The humble always are seen. One demands attention. The other creates value. And true value never needs to shout. In the end, each of us must choose. Do you want to be the one praised quickly, but forgotten just as fast? Or the one respected slowly, but remembered forever? Do you want to be noise, or an echo? Noise is loud but fades instantly. An echo is soft but lingers long. Humility creates the echo. Arrogance creates the noise. There are truths you don't want to hear, but you need to hear, especially when life starts to fall apart. You don't fail because you're not good enough. You fail because you think you're better than you actually are. That is the tragedy of many people. They don't fall because they lack ability, they fall because they live in illusions. Arrogance builds a tall tower in your mind. You stand on it, looking down, believing everyone is beneath you. But one day, with just a light breeze, that imaginary tower collapses, and you finally realize you weren't Tulu, were just standing on your own delusion. Meanwhile, humble people build foundations. They don't rush to be high. They don't need to stand out. They don't need to be seen. But when they rise, they stand firm. Life has a strange rule. The more you try to prove you're better than others, the more clearly others see what you're lacking. What is truly strong doesn't need to boast. What is truly valuable need to show off. A sharp sword stays in its sheath, and everyone respects it. A dull piece of metal swung loudly in the air only makes people laugh. That is the difference between humility and arrogance. Humble people don't need to prove anything. Arrogant people cannot live without proving something. You will meet such people in your life. Every word they say implies they're always right. They walk with their chin up, as if the world owes them something. They always want to stand above others, even by just a few centimeters. They love judging, belittling, and pretending to be the smartest in the room. But then time does what time always does. It exposes them. It reveals how weak they truly are. It places them in situations where they cannot play the role of the best. And at that moment, their emptiness becomes painfully visible. Arrogance doesn't just make you look bad to others, it makes you fall behind in your own life. Some people stop moving forward not because they lack ability, but because they spend all their ego. They fear learning something new because it might show they don't know. They fear asking questions because they might be laughed at. They fear correcting mistakes because that means admitting mistakes. But here's the irony. When you fear acknowledging what you're bad at, you stay bad forever. Meanwhile, humble people go the opposite way. They actively look for their weaknesses. They willingly admit their mistakes. They willingly fix them. And they improve naturally without ever needing to shout, "I'm getting better." For them, progress is a need. For the arrogant, pride is the need. Do you remember the last time you truly learned something meaningful? It definitely wasn't when you were bragging. It wasn't when you were quietly basking in your own self-satisfaction. It was when you were hurt, when you were challenged, when you were underestimated, when you had no choice but to look at yourself and see how many flaws you still had. Those moments, the ones that make your face burn, your ego ache, your pride scream, are the most valuable lessons in life. Humility lets you receive the lesson. Arrogance makes you miss the lesson. One day, you will realize the people you looked down on ended up surpassing you. The people you thought were ordinary quietly succeeded. The people you underestimated became the ones you must look up to. And you'll ask yourself, why did they go so far while I'm still here? The answer fits in just two words: humility or arrogance. Whichever one you choose, life will give you the result of that choice. Humility gives you soil to grow. Arrogance gives you wind to float. But soil nourishes the tree, and wind only uproots it. Do you want to be a strong tree or a drifting leaf? Arrogance blinds people faster than anything else. It's like a thin layer of dust settling on a mirror at first. You can still see, just a little blurry, still acceptable. But day by day, the dust grows thicker, until one day you look into the mirror and no longer recognize who you've become. You think you're rising, but in reality, you're slipping backward. You think you're shining, but you're only standing under a spotlight and fooling yourself into believing the light is yours. The arrogant never know they're arrogant, and that is the deadliest trap. And humble people, they're like soil, simple, plain. Nothing glittering on the surface, yet everything grows from them. Humble people don't fight for the spotlight. They create light through genuine value. They don't need to raise their voice, because their value speaks on its own. They don't need to prove themselves, because they know who they are. Meanwhile, the arrogant spend their whole life trying to prove something they never truly had. Humility isn't bowing your head, nor is it lowering your worth. Humility is knowing where you're strong, where you're weak, and having the courage to face it. Arrogance is being too afraid to face your flaws, so you wear a beautiful mask to cover them. Humility is standing in the dark and still knowing you can light it up. Arrogance is standing in the light and fearing people will see there's nothing inside. Life always gives signs. The problem is the arrogant refuse to look. When you talk too much and no one listens. When you show off and no one cares. When you desperately try to prove yourself and no one acknowledges it. That's not an unfair world. That's life telling you, sit down, learn, Again. Stop living in illusions. But the arrogant see it as an insult. The humble see it as an opportunity. Humility takes you far. Arrogance pulls you back. Humble people see the long road. Arrogant people only see a small peak and think it's the whole sky. Humble people listen to learn. Arrogant people listen to respond. Humble people stay silent to observe. Arrogant people stay silent, waiting for applause, and then, when life hits hard, the humble rise again, the arrogant shatter, because the entire world, inside them, is only a shadow. Life is strange. It gives the humble opportunities. It lets the humble move slowly, but steadily, and lets the arrogant move quickly but get lost. It lets the humble lose a little to gain much, and lets the arrogant gain earlyly to lose everything in the end. There are moments in life when you realize arrogance doesn't need to be spoken out loud. It shows in your eyes when you think you're above others. It appears in the way you dismiss sincere advice. It hides in the way you reject an opportunity simply because it doesn't match your ego. Arrogance is when you believe everything should revolve around you, should bend for you, should acknowledge you even though you haven't done anything significant enough to deserve it. And then you wonder why life feels cold toward you. But the truth is, life isn't cold. It's simply fair. Humility is the only thing that can open the doors arrogance has closed. Humble people understand that every person they meet carries a lesson. Arrogant people ignore all of it, convinced they already know enough. And it's that sense of knowing enough that keeps them from ever being enough. Life has two kinds of silence. The silence of the humble, who stay quiet to listen, and the silence of the arrogant, who stay quiet because they think no one is worth listening to. Just look around. Those who are truly strong are always calm. Those who are weak are always trying to appear strong. And the scariest part is this: the arrogant always mistake showing off for power. But no, it's just the noise of insecurity. Humility doesn't make you smaller. It helps you grow in the most sustainable way. It forces you to look back at what you did wrong, thought wrong, or chose wrong, and fix it. Arrogance makes you defend your mistakes as if your life depends on it, just because you fear people will see you're not perfect. But the truth is, no one is perfect. Some are just brave enough to face it, while others try desperately to hide it. A humble person is respected wherever they go. An arrogant person is tested wherever they go, and often collapses under their own test. Life is always like that. It doesn't punish arrogance. It simply lets arrogance prove its own limits. There's a harsh truth everyone eventually learns. Arrogant people often stand among crowds. Yet they're the lonely est. They build walls too high around themselves. They won't let anyone in, and they won't step out. They fear people seeing their true self. Small, fragile, and full of emptiness. So they wear the brightest, hardest, prettiest armor, and suffocate inside it. Humble people are different. They don't need walls, they just need boundaries. Boundaries to know who should walk with them, and who should leave. Humility allows them to stay open but not naive, kind but not foolish, soft but not weak. There are moments in life when you think you're rising, but really, you're just standing on a pedestal built from your own illusions. And when the winds of life blow a failure, a shock, a mistake, that pedestal collapses so fast you can't grab onto anything. That is the consequence of arrogance. you climb. Too quickly, but with no foundation strong enough to hold you. Humble people build the foundation before the house. They know that whatever is built to last always takes time. Whatever is real always needs patience. The arrogant do the opposite. They want to stand on top of others. They want more. Want faster, want louder. They want to prove something. But the more they try to prove, the more their emptiness shows. And one day, they look around and realize the people who once supported them have left. The people who once trusted them now keep their distance. The people who once tried to help them have gone silent. Not because the world turned its back on them, but because arrogance made them turn their back first. Life is perfectly fair. Those who see themselves as small will grow. Those who see themselves as big will shrink. Humility allows you to walk into any room without feeling threatened by someone else's light. You don't envy, because you know everyone has their own path. You don't compare, because you know you have your own light too. It simply hasn't shined yet. Arrogance makes you fear those who are better. Fear being overshadowed. Fear losing your position. Fear being replaced. And that fear turns you into the worst version of yourself. Humility is accepting that you're not enough, not to belittle yourself, but to open the door for growth. Arrogance is believing you're already enough. And that's the first sign of decline. And the most painful part is this: life doesn't punish the arrogant immediately. It lets them climb, lets them dream, lets them believe. So that when they fall from heights so high, standing back up becomes almost impossible. Humble people don't fall hard, because they don't build peaks for their ego. They build paths for their future. There are people who walk through life with their eyes always looking upward, not to find a goal, but to check how high they stand above others. And because of that, they fail to see the pothole right in front of them, the open door waiting for them, the helping hand reaching out. Arrogance makes them look up to compare, instead of looking within to grow. Humble people are different. They know how to look down, not to belittle themselves, but to remember that they were once that weak, that lost, that wrong. And when you remember your own mistakes, you stop looking down on anyone. Arrogance has one very dangerous trait. It makes you believe that every success is because of you, and every failure is because of someone else. And when you live with that mindset for too long, you lose the ability to look inward. A person who no longer knows how to self-reflect is a person who will inevitably lose their way. Humble people are not afraid to admit their mistakes, because they understand that mistakes are part of the journey. Arrogant people see admitting mistakes as a loss of face, so they create all kinds of excuses to avoid it. But that avoidance is exactly what makes them repeat the same mistake at the same spot over and over, until life finally makes them pay for it. If you pay attention, you'll notice arrogant people often speak about their future with grand promises, yet they can't face their present. Humble people rarely boast, but step by step, they turn their lives into evidence. There are days when arrogance makes you walk faster than others, but eventually you'll realize walking fast doesn't matter as much as walking right. And only humble people are clear-headed enough to see the path. Arrogant people use success to measure the worth of others. Humble people use character to measure their own worth. And in the end, the arrogant gain many things except respect. The humble may lose many things except dignity. The special thing about humility is this: it doesn't make you shine immediately, but it makes you remembered for a long time. It won't help you win every small competition, but it will help you win the larger journey of life. Arrogance is like fireworks, flashy, explosive, and then gone. Humility is like the night sky, quiet, deep, enduring. Life will test you with people who are better than you. If you're humble, you learn. If you're arrogant, you envy. Life will test you with people more successful than you. If you're humble, you gain motivation. If you're arrogant, you feel inferior, but hide it behind illusions. Life will test you with criticism. If you're humble, you grow. If you're arrogant, you get angry and then you fall behind. No one realizes the day they become arrogant, but everyone remembers the day arrogance made them lose something important: a relationship, an opportunity, someone genuine, or the version of themselves they once loved. Humble people aren't more perfect. They're simply more aware, and awareness in this life is a form of strength. There are people who carry a very subtle kind of arrogance. They don't speak it, they don't show it off, they don't boast. Yet they believe that the moment they take a step, the world should shift to make space for them. They think they're different, when the only thing truly different is that they don't know their own limits. Humble people are the opposite. They understand that the world is much bigger than they are. They realize they're just a small piece of a much larger picture, and that realization is exactly what takes them farther than anyone else. Because those who know they are small always have room to grow. Those who think they are already big have no space left to become better. Arrogance stands in front of a mirror to admire itself. Humility stands in front of life to learn. One person spends their time praising themselves. Another spends their time improving themselves. And the results eventually speak for themselves. Look at people who succeed with long-lasting impact. They are calm, attentive, curious, and deeply respectful of others. But those who have only touched a little bit of spotlight to shallow, too brief are often the quickest to become arrogant. They look down on the efforts of everyone around them. They forget that the light they have didn't appear out of nowhere. It is the result of hundreds of people who once taught them, helped them, supported them. That an arrogant person lives off the approval of others. A humble person lives off the true value they build within themselves. And the harsh truth is, the more someone needs validation, the easier they fall into despair. The more someone builds real value, the freer they become. Arrogance is like a flame that pushes you forward quickly but burns you first. Humility is like water, gentle but steady, persistent, and capable of carving through stone over time. There will be moments in life when you meet someone incredibly skilled, talented, and capable. If you're arrogant, you'll feel threatened. But if you're humble, you'll recognize it as a gift from life, a mirror, a living lesson, a reminder that you still have much more room to grow. The arrogant want to stand high so they can look down on others. The humble want to stand firm so they can truly see themselves. Because looking down only feeds illusion, while looking inward is what makes you genuinely stronger. There will come a time when you face two choices. Protect your ego. Improve yourself. The arrogant choose the first. The humble choose the second. And only one of them will grow. The irony is this: arrogance is strongest in those who are the weakest. They use loud words to hide fear, use attitude to hide insecurity, use a tough exterior to hide an empty interior. Humility however, often belongs to those with real inner strength. They don't need to act strong, they already are. They don't need to insist. They're right, they know they can be wrong. They don't need to prove they're better than others, they understand. Life is a long journey, and a long journey has no place for a fragile ego. There are people who spend their entire lives protecting an image they created for themselves. They want others to look at them with admiration. But they forget that what earns respect is not an image, but the real person behind it. Arrogance turns them into unwilling actors, constantly performing the roles of "I'm perfect," "I'm superior," "I'm never wrong." But acting for too long is exhausting, and when you're exhausted, you slip. And when the mask finally falls, people see a version of them far weaker than the image they once showed off. Humble people don't need to perform. They are so real that others may mistake them for being ordinary. But that ordinariness is exactly the root of their strength. You can defeat an arrogant person with a small stumble from life. But to defeat a humble person, even a storm may not be enough to knock them down. Silent strength is always more powerful than loud strength. Arrogant people often think they are superior, so they stop learning, stop listening, stop changing. And that's when they begin to fall behind. Not because they are weak, but because the world does not stand still waiting for their self-satisfaction. A humble person sees someone else improving and asks, "Can I become better too?" An arrogant person sees the same thing and asks, "Why are they better than me?" Just one wrong question can send an entire life off course. There are people who are incredibly talented, but arrogance makes their talent inaccessible. They do good work, but their attitude pushes others away. In the end, they do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because no one wants to walk the long road with them. You can be as smart, successful, and gifted as you want. But a little arrogance is enough for you to close every door you could have walked through. Meanwhile, a humble person opens doors their talent alone might not open, simply because people value them, trust them, and want to see them go far. Humility is like the roots of a tree. It lies underground, unseen, but it keeps the whole tree standing strong. Arrogance is like a flower that blooms too early, bright and beautiful, but quick to wither. You'll know you're truly humble when someone else's brilliance no longer threatens you. You'll know you're arrogant when even a little bit of someone else being better makes you uncomfortable. Arrogance is a battle with the world. Humility is a battle with yourself, and remember, winning against the world is nothing compared to winning against yourself. Arrogance wins quickly, then loses painfully. Humility loses in the short term, but wins the rest of life. In the end, humility and arrogance are not just two personality traits you choose. They are two directions that will shape the entire course of your life. One path is smooth, but short, bright, but fleeting. You rise fast, but you fall just as fast. That is the path of arrogance, where the ego always demands more than your true ability can offer. The other path is quieter, but long, less fireworks, but enough light. Not always easy, but every step helps you grow. That is the path of humility, where you don't need to be better than anyone else. You only need to be better than the person you were yesterday. And then you'll realize, those who walk the humble path to the very end carry peace with them. But those who choose arrogance, even when standing at the highest point, still feel insecure, because the bigger the ego, the tighter the heart. But the wider the heart, the lighter the life. You don't need to be the most exceptional person in the room. You just need to be the one most willing to learn. You don't need to prove you're great. Just work quietly and let life prove it for you. Remember this: humility doesn't make you smaller. It simply pulls you out of your own shadow so you can see how much more you can become. And if one day you feel lost, hurt, or ready to give up, ask yourself whether you are walking with real strength or just trying to keep your ego from collapsing. It's never too late to choose again. Never too late to start over. Growth always begins the moment you lower your egos. You can lift yourself up. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you for opening your heart, even just for a few minutes, to walk with me to the end of this message. If these words touched you, if they helped you reflect, become stronger or clearer, I invite you to subscribe to Life Wisdom, where we grow together, awaken together, and become better each day. Thank you. And remember, humility doesn't dim your light. It simply makes that light real.